The NFL started almost 100 years ago, and since then we've seen some of the best and worst performances from the teams. These matches are disappointing for the big teams, but at the same time a big opportunity for the contenders. Here are 10 of the biggest NFL upsets of all time. Let's dive in. First off, at number 10, we have Super Bowl IV. Sports writers regarded the NFL as a superior league, so the Vikings were favored by 12 to 13 points over the Chiefs. The AFL and NFL merged after this, making it the fourth and final AFL-NFL World Championship game. The heavy underdog Kansas City Chiefs defeated the Minnesota Vikings 23-7 in the final meeting before the merger, granting the AFL the historic last laugh in its head-to-head matchups with the NFL. The wet weather didn't help either team, but Chiefs head coach Hank Stram outwitted his Vikings counterpart Bud Grant by game planning a shutdown of Minnesota's powerful run game. This limited them to just 67 yards on the ground over the entire 60-minute period. The Chiefs, led by defensive end Buck Buchanan and linebacker Willie Lanier, held the Vikings to one touchdown on 67 total offensive yards, forcing 3 fumbles and intercepting 3 passes. The Chiefs sealed the victory with Otis Taylor's high-stepping 46-yard touchdown run in the third quarter. The MVP of the game was Chiefs quarterback Len Dawson, but the game's real star was their smothering defense. Another key figure in the game was the outspoken head coach of Kansas City Chiefs, Hank Stram, who was milked up for the first time in a Super Bowl. Following up at number 9, 1987-88 NFC Divisional Playoffs. Despite winning 4 Super Bowls and being named Team of the Decade in the 1980s, the 49ers and their coach Bill Walsh from the Hall of Fame suffered several crushing defeats during the decade, including a last-second loss to the Redskins in the 1983 NFC Championship game. But as bad as those losses were, they paled in comparison to the 49ers' stunning defeat of the Vikings in the divisional round of the 1987 playoffs, a loss later described as the worst of his career. Despite being 11-point favorites entering the game, the 49ers fell to the Vikings 36-24 after going 13-2 during the strike-shortened regular season. Basically, San Francisco's defense, which led the NFL in passing and rushing defense during the regular season, couldn't stop Vikings receiver Anthony Carter, who torched the 49ers for a former record 227 yards on 10 catches. Wade Wilson, the Vikings quarterback, on that day threw for nearly 300 yards and 2 touchdowns against the formidable 49ers defense. Wilson's first touchdown pass, a 7-yarder to Carl Hilton, gave the Vikings a 13-3 lead in the second quarter. Coming up at number 8, Super Bowl XXV. It's the game that was played while the Gulf War was raging in the Middle East. In fact, the Super Bowl halftime show was recorded and replayed so that a live report on the progress of the war with anchor Peter Jennings could be played instead. In the Buffalo Bills' first ever Super Bowl appearance, head coach Marv Levy used a no-huddle offense to keep Bill Parcells' Giants off guard for the majority of the game, with the Bills leading 12-10 at halftime. With only 8 seconds remaining in the fourth quarter and trailing by a single point, the Bills had a chance to win the game with a 47-yard field goal, but place kicker Scott Norwood missed wide right of the uprights. So Buffalo lost the big game by a single point, which is the first time in Super Bowl history. It's also the first game in which neither team committed a turnover. Next up at number 7, Redskins' Scabs beat America's team. The Dallas Cowboys were expected to blow away the Washington Redskins' replacement players because many of their starters crossed the picket line of striking NFL players, but the Redskins' starters didn't. This was an important game because it was played in the midst of the players' strike, and it featured Washington replacement players facing off against some Dallas starters who were viewed as strike breakers at best and gabs at worst. Officially, 6 Dallas Cowboys veterans took the field against a Washington Redskins team made up entirely of replacement players who were either NFL free agents or were laid off after the Canadian Football League folded. The game was decided by a defensive play by the Redskins on 4th down at the Washington 13-yard line with 2 seconds remaining, giving the Redskins a 13-7 victory and a 4-1 record. For number 6, Jaguars upset Broncos in the 1996 playoffs. Denver Broncos, the AFC West champions, were favored by 2 touchdowns over the wild-card winning Jacksonville Jaguars, a second-year expansion team. The Jaguars were an expansion team that had just been added to the NFL, so they weren't expected to make the playoffs, let alone beat the AFC's top seed that year. After the Broncos led 12-0 at the end of the first quarter, the Jaguars scored 13 unanswered points in the second quarter to lead 13-12 at the half, a scoring run that included an 80-yard, 12-play touchdown drive and a 42-yard field goal with not more than a minute left in the half. Despite scoring 15 fourth-quarter points, the Broncos were defeated by a field goal, and quarterback Mark Brunell made the best postseason game of his 17-year NFL career. Following up at number 5, Super Bowl 32, the game was hailed as a shutdown between two great gunslinger quarterbacks in aging John Elway and the hotshot Brett Favre. Instead, a running back suffering from a migraine led the Denver Broncos to a 31-24 victory over the Green Bay Packers, who were defending Super Bowl champions. Terrell Davis rushed for 157 yards and 3 touchdowns, including the game-winning score with less than 2 minutes remaining. After 3 heartbreaking Super Bowl losses, Elway finally received his first Super Bowl ring. Elway's airborne third down scramble late in the game has become Super Bowl canon. Up next at number 4, Browns upset Eagles in 1950 opener. This was essentially the first Super Bowl with the NFL's 1948 and 1949 champions, the Philadelphia Eagles, facing the team that won all 4 AAFC champions, the Cleveland Browns, in a game that was termed the World Series of professional football. This was the Cleveland Browns' first season in the NFL, and no one thought they could beat the Philly Eagles, who were considered the best football team in the world at the time. Except that the style of football that Paul Brown's Cleveland team played was something the Eagles had never seen before, and it caught them off guard in a humiliating 10-35 loss. Because of the shocking Browns victory, 3 AAFC teams, Cleveland, the San Francisco 49ers, and the Baltimore Colts, were permanently merged into the National Football League. Coming in at number 3, Super Bowl 36. Many experts believe that this game put Tom Brady and the New England Patriots on the map as they defeated the high-powered St. Louis Rams 20-17. They went on to win 2 more Super Bowls in 2003 and 2004, establishing themselves as one of the most successful dynasties in recent NFL history. Brady was relatively unknown prior to taking over as starting quarterback from Drew Bledsoe, who was injured early in the season. Many questioned Brady's ability to handle the pressure of a Super Bowl, but Brady went punch for punch with the greatest show on turf. That was his first in head coach Bill Belichick's 6 Super Bowl titles, a total that could rise or fall depending on Brady's NFL home in 2020. For number 2, we have Super Bowl 42. Joe Namath, the Jets quarterback, waving his finger in victory as he left the Orange Bowl field, is undoubtedly the game's most memorable moment. He boldly predicted a victory over the powerful Baltimore Colts 3 days prior. The Jets' defense frustrated the Colts all day by forcing them to turn the ball over. The New York offense featured a single touchdown run by running back Matt Snell and 3 field goals by kicker Jim Turner. The Colts did make a late comeback with an aging Johnny Unitas coming off the bench to lead them to their lone touchdown. But it was too little too late, and the AFL had won its major game against the NFL. Finally, at number 1, Super Bowl 3. It was the first professional football championship to be dubbed the Super Bowl, and it is now regarded as the greatest upset in NFL history. The Baltimore Colts were expected to win big in this game. Namath and his Jets kept their promise, taking control of the game from the start and racing out to a 16-0 lead by the 4th quarter. The Jets' defense was making life difficult for Colts quarterback Earl Morrall, intercepting 3 of his passes before he was substituted by Johnny Unitas, who led Baltimore to its lone touchdown with just a few moments remaining. Joe Namath, the quarterback for the New York Jets, was named the game's MVP after completing 17 of 28 passes for 206 yards. But he neither threw nor ran for any touchdowns, making him the first non-scoring MVP in the history of the game. Well, guys, that's a wrap for this video. So what do you think is the biggest upset in NFL history? Let us know in the comment section down below. Also, make sure to give this video a like and share the video. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more videos just like this, and we'll see you next time.